I think those fears are false. I've been a civil rights attorney for 30 years, okay? And I think it's very, very clear what hate crimes are and how they exist. You cannot justify Jewish American students being denied access to buildings. This is not a free speech issue. So when people talk about the Trump administration's approach, I submit to you the previous 4 years, they did nothing. They did nothing to stop the harassments on these college campuses. They did nothing to enforce hate crime laws. So the Trump administration is aggressive. We're using every tool. We're going to have a big lawsuit against an entire UC system coming down very shortly that basically have allowed what we call a pattern and practice of anti-Semitism. But I want to reject the notion that individuals or the Trump administration is too aggressive, it has the wrong strategy to enforce the civil rights laws. I think people need to know a little bit of history in this country. Jewish Americans helped create the NAACP. Jewish Americans walked with black Americans in the 60s where blacks were denied the same treatment. They were denied the opportunity to go to class. So I love the fact, as a person of color, as a civil rights attorney, that I am reminding people that Jewish Americans have the same rights afforded to all Americans. And I'll tell you right now, we're not doing enough.
I want to get to the personal aspect, and then we'll get back to the Trump administration's efforts, because you brought it up. I mean, blacks and Jews marched together in the civil rights movement, and there has been a growing chasm, it seems, between the communities, especially over the last few years, especially in a post-October 7th environment. I mean, having been down this road before, can you provide any insight into any solutions in that growing chasm between the communities?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked that question. First of all, I had the privilege to speak to 90 black pastors at the White House and reminded them of the history between Jews and blacks, about the financial aid that the Jewish community gave to help create the NAACP. How 2 Jewish Americans lost their lives in June of 1964 when they went down to Mississippi to help blacks register to vote. I reminded those pastors of that. I reminded them that there has been a strong history of blacks and Jews in this country. And the Jews are facing the same problems that blacks face. And we have an affirmative obligation, not just because of the history, because we're all Americans. And so that's what I spoke about just last week. And I'll tell you right now, people who are invested in making sure there's democracy and freedom of religions, Catholics, Baptists, Muslims, Jews, Christians, we have an obligation to protect Jewish Americans and make sure they have the same rights. If those rights aren't protected, our rights are not protected.
I got to ask you, because there's a long history of Democrats accusing Republicans of accepting anti-Semitism on their side but doing nothing on their own. And it's been the same for Republicans. They issue the same accusations toward Democrats but don't handle their side of the aisle. When we're talking about college campuses, the great bulk of them are run by the left. It's simply a fact. But there's no doubt there's anti-Semitism from other corners of America emanating from the right. Where's the initiative to tackle that?
There's hate on both sides. And I will submit to you that what we're tackling, anti-Semitism, is an American bipartisan issue. It was in these camps. Democrats were pro-support of Israel and Jewish America. It shouldn't be that way. It is an American issue. I mean, we're talking about why people want to live in this country. Freedom of religion, a constitution that has basically survived over 250 years. And I think what we need to do is make sure we keep our eye on the prize. We need to eliminate anti-Semitism. This is where I think you get universal support from both sides. It's just, how do you eliminate it? And that's where I think the President Trump, and we have a plan. I don't think it was addressed as vigorously as it should have been in the last 4 years. I would submit to you that was called the Michigan strategy, where they wanted to win Michigan. Here, no politics involved. We want to eliminate it. We want to put myself out of business. We have a lot to do.
Leo Terrell, thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure and my privilege.